Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. I'd like to begin by saying that I have a problem that causes my heart to shut down and virtually cease beating. The condition has a lengthy term that begins with cardio and ends with syncope. When this occurs, I have out-of-body or near-death experiences. I can't say it happens all the time, but I believe I constantly had an experience. I just don't remember them all. I have recollections of 4 distinct events. My first incident occurred when I was 17 years old. I just had my wisdom teeth out and was recuperating at home. I stood up to use the restroom. I was in another location after hearing 2 thuds. The atmosphere was filled with brightness and love. There were robed beings of lights watching over me. My parents were in the bathroom when they heard my body fall. They smashed the door and hauled me back here. My mother said I was as white as a ghost and had no life in me. It terrified her. I had no idea what to make of the event, except that it felt more real than actual. I just put it aside and went about my business. My next incident occurred when I was 29 years old. My stepson and I were riding on a 4-wheeled ATV. I was in the driver's seat and he was in the rear. We were speeding down a hill, and I recall braking because we were too fast to make the curve at the bottom of the hill. Something must have gone wrong with the brakes, because the next thing I remember is standing on the mountainside. The 4-wheeler beside me was turned upside down, and I saw myself lying face down beneath it. I didn't pay much attention to that scenario, since 2 gorgeous, golden, wispy glittering lights were approaching me from across the creek in front of me. 2 entities emerged from the lights on either side of me. They were at least 8 feet tall and human-like, with rosy fair complexion and Dutch boy hairstyles. One had platinum blonde hair that was straight, and the other had yellow hair with a slight wave. They were both dressed in white robes. I was speechless. We accelerated up, and were in this magnificent place of brightly colored landscapes in the blink of an eye. There were lovely flora and grass. Everything was alive, like if they were conscious plants. That's the best way I can put it. It was such a happy environment that even the plants were delighted. In the distance, there stood a white, walled city. On the other side of the wall, there were a few domed structures. The 2 tall beings set me down on a bench and told me I had to sit there until they finished speaking with another very tall, skinny male with short dark hair and clothed in a dark one-piece garment. When they returned, I was told I couldn't enter the city. I was sad because I desperately wanted to visit the city. I asked if I might return here, and they said yes. They were gentle and loving, but strict with me. I was then sucked back into my body. My stepson was trying to get the 4-wheeler off of me when I was underneath it. I'm not sure how I did it, but I got up and threw the 4-wheeler off of me. It tumbled down the hill. Fortunately, neither of us was terribly injured, although I was rather uncomfortable and bruised. My stepson was completely unscathed. Later, he told me that we collided with the bank next to us and that he flew through the air and landed safely. This incident had a great impact on me, I must say. I knew it was more real than real, and I couldn't say, no matter how desperately I wanted to. For years, I was angry and heartbroken, fearing that I would never be able to return there. I've had cardiac troubles my entire life. As of this writing, I've had 6 heart attacks, several stent placements, a quadruple heart bypass, and a defibrillator or pacemaker implant. I was brought to the hospital after experiencing tachycardia at work. They ran a battery of tests on me in an attempt to figure out what was causing this. The tilt table test was utilized during the process to determine that I had this cardiosyncope disease. I failed the exam, but when I did, I found myself in a winding, curving corridor. Above was this lovely colorful light, full of goodness and love. I was chasing after it. I was so desperate for the light that all I could think about was how to get to it. As I was closing in on it, I suddenly pulled up out of there and above the area. I realized it was a massive maze. On the table, I was sucked back into my body. I blinked my eyes open. The physicians wanted to know how I was doing. They informed me that I had failed the test in the most egregious manner they'd ever witnessed. I couldn't stop thinking about how angry I was to be back here. I simply did not want to be here. My subsequent and final NDE was the most profound experience I'd ever had. I had been experiencing significant abdominal discomfort, so much so I had to visit the emergency department several times. Then I awakened one morning with acute abdominal ache. It was made worse by life-threatening diarrhea and dehydration. My problem caused a persistent syncope episode. I was struggling to maintain awareness. My wife had called 911 at the moment, and a squad of first responders was on their way. I struggled hard to remain awake till they arrived. They wheeled me out of the bathroom in a wheelchair. They took me to the gurney and told me to stand up and climb aboard. When I informed them I couldn't stand, they promised to assist me. They surrounded me on both sides and helped me stand. Later, I discovered that my body had dropped to the ground. My eyes were wide open and my mouth was gurgling. Nonetheless, I was instantaneously transported to a realm of golden light and perfect love. I was standing in this unbounded zone of light. The affection was overwhelming. I noticed a gathering of light folks. I was curious about who they were. They came to me immediately after I thought that. There were perhaps a dozen people present, and two of them approached me. One among the attendees was a lovely woman with auburn hair. She wore a white robe and radiated brightness from within. She was strong, commanding, and full of love. Love was all around us and within us. We were all linked together in love and light. We started talking to each other. I knew all there was to know about her, and she knew everything there was to know about me. Then I realized I was at home. I knew everyone, and they knew who I was. I'm crying as I type this. It makes me cry every time I think about it. This woman was my grandma, and the man beside her was my father. It wasn't so much who they were as I knew them on earth, as it was who they truly are. They were the beings I'd known my entire life. They adore me, and I adore them. I recognized that this is where I come from, and where we all come from. I recall that a portion of me was away at school here on earth. They were overjoyed that I was returning. They were extremely proud of me for leaving. I knew so much right away that I can't remember it now. I can only surmise that I can't know it in my current bodily state. There was a deluge of data, photos, and knowledge. The Bible tells me who Jesus claimed to be. He claimed to be God's son. The response I received verified what I already understood as a Christian. It was assurance that he was returning to earth. I was filled with excitement. The opposing side is waiting for this to happen with bated breath. I could tell it was going to be a fantastic occasion. The woman then raised her hands and interlocked her fingers, much like a quarterback would when calling for a huddle. That, to me, meant that these two realms, here and there, will merge. I was filled with enthusiasm and awe. When I asked when it would happen, all I got was, soon. They had no idea when it would happen. That's when I felt as if they were washing over me, as if I were lying down. We come to Earth to learn how to mature. We learn significantly more here than we could do anywhere else. The sorrow and joy we experience here teach us so much about love and goodness by experiencing its absence. It is a tremendous lesson that we must learn. I was told that I would only be here until they could fix my body, so that I could occupy it again. I was devastated once more. I didn't want to return, but I had to return. They placed me on my body, and when the woman reached in to kiss me, I was quickly yanked away, almost as if I were falling down a sewer. I kept hearing an audible voice asking me to trust in the Lord. The Lord is Jesus Christ to me. I could feel myself being drawn back into my body. I was drawn back into my body. "Dad! Dad!" yelled my stepson, standing over me and shaking me. I was in a great deal of pain. They couldn't get a blood pressure reading because my feet were over my head, but my heart rate was 30 beats per minute. They had to airlift me to another hospital, where I stayed for many days. Some days, I'm not there. I have no recollection of them.